Hello, I'm happy to join you today. Let me share my screen and we can get started. I'm Patricia Harpring, Managing Editor of the Getty Vocabulary Program. And I'm here today to talk to you about the Getty Vocabularies, current developments, and a focus on ULAN. What are the Getty Vocabularies? Here is a picture of us standing at the brand new Getty Center in 1997, the vocabulary program here with a number of our colleagues. The Getty was a trailblazer in committing to resources and standards for vocabularies for art information already in the 1980s. So in 1997, we're almost 20 years old. We're building on the work of the Thesaurus Artis Universalis of SIHA. The Getty engaged disparate communities, visual resources, museums, libraries, special collections, archives, and scholars, and under Getty leadership, determined best practice for cataloging art and for vocabularies for cataloging research and discovery. Here is a group standing at the Getty Center in 2020, just before the pandemic lockdown. This is the International Terminology Working Group. Over the years, the vocabularies have changed with the requirements of our core community and our need to remain relevant. The Getty collaborates with the international visual arts information community, and one of our primary goals is to become more multilingual, multicultural, and inclusive. We have a small editorial staff, and we work with a small technical team at the Getty and with consultants. We rely upon over 350 contributors to grow the vocabularies. These include institutions, consortia, scholarly projects, and individual experts. There are 5 Getty vocabularies. Let's start with the union list of artist names. This includes names and other rich data for artists, architects, firms, studios, repositories, and patrons, both named and anonymous. And we may include co-references to other resources that deal with the same topics. So for here, for example, you'll find the painter Mark Rothko, the anonymous Crevillé Master, and the architectural firm I.M. Pei and Partners. Here's a full record for ULAN data. Honing in here on the names, you'll see that we have a unique identifier for the overall ULAN record, the ULAN ID, as well as for each of the names. And each of these names may have languages associated with them. There may be contributors associated with them, and the published sources where these names are found. You can see under Hokusai, the second name there, there's a date, a display date, name taken by the artist in 1798 and used for his prints and paintings. And then there are indexing dates behind the scenes, but this allows retrieval on that date. Other information, we have a display biography, Japanese printmaker, painter, 1760 to 1848. And then we index that information in order to allow retrieval. The birth and death date, whether actual or estimated. We have the nationality Japanese that is controlled by the AAT, as well as roles, printmaker, designer, calligrapher, all controlled by the AAT. Birth and death places and locus of activity controlled by the TGN. We have associative relationships to other people in ULAN. So we have his Hokusai's teacher, Taito, is linked. We have him as an adoptive child of Nakajima Issei, and possibly identified with this name also. For the record, we always have contributors and sources, including, as you note, that red number about halfway down that little box, that is the ID of the Library of Congress Authority for Hokusai. So this is a co-reference to another resource that has information about Hokusai. All of the Getty vocabularies are hierarchies, and here's the hierarchy in ULAN. Now, if you're just dealing with people, you probably don't even notice it because it's a flat hierarchy. There we see Hokusai under people, artists. But for corporate bodies such as the Art Institute of Chicago, we have indentation indicating the various departments that are part of the Art Institute of Chicago. Other Getty vocabularies include the AAT, the Art and Architecture Thesaurus, that includes terms in several languages, as well as rich data for work types, roles, materials, styles, and other things. So here you might find terms like amphora, sintering, Olmec culture, etc. TGN, the Getty Thesaurus of Geographic Names, includes names and other rich data for places, with a special focus on historical information for current cities, archaeological sites, lost settlements, etc., places as necessary for cataloging art. TGN is not comprehensive, and it's not a geographic information system or GIS, but there may be co-references to such resources. In TGN, you might find records such as Ottoman Empire, Machu Picchu. IA, the Getty Iconography Authority, includes proper names, relationships, and dates for iconographical narratives, religious or fictional characters, historical events, and other things. We have a special focus on non-Western, and we have co-references to other resources that might have information on these topics, such as Library of Congress or Iconclass. Here you might find records for people such as the deity Yamonja in Africa, or the Maya underworld Xibalba. CONA, the Cultural Objects Name Authority. We have titles, artist attribution, and other information for works. Our focus now is on architecture, multiples such as prints, works depicted in other works, lost works, and works designed but not built. So here you might find works such as Hagia Sophia or the Great Wave print by Hokusai. Why Getty Vocabularies? Here is a record for this hanging scroll and all the field tags there in green with the names of the vocabularies to which they're linked in red. So starting at the top, you might link work type and other things to the AAT, painting and hanging scroll. For the creator, you would link the creator, one or more creators or patrons, Guaoji, Qianglang, to ULAN. For materials, you might link to the AAT. So we have ink and silk and other materials linked. And for the location, this is located in the National Palace Museum in ULAN. And then over in ULAN, it's linked to the geographic place in Taiwan. For subjects depicted, renewal of life from the Iconography Authority, spring, pine, travel, floating perspective, shan shui would be from, controlled with the AAT. So this is why you use the Getty Vocabularies. And by linking this creator, Guaoji, to the ULAN record, now we have disambiguated this entity from all others who might have a similar name. Also, in ULAN, we give you the full power of the associated rich data to use on the retrieval side. So we have all the names for Guaoji. We have various roles, nationality, birth and death places that could be used in retrieval. Now we're looking at some AAT terms. There we have a work type painting linked to the AAT. And up above, there's another field called classification, also linked to the AAT, both linked to the painting record. And I just want to point out how there is an ID, a persistent, unique ID for the record overall, and also for each term in the record. So if it's important to you for work type that the singular English term display or that a French term display, you should try to link to the actual term ID as well, because the default in our LOD and other releases is the plural English term. So just to go a step further with that to help explain it. So if you go to the record for paintings online, you can link to the JSON, which is an LOD format, and you can see the down below how the URI for the concept includes that ULAN ID that ends in 618. But for the term itself, let's say you want the singular English painting, you should try to link to the term rather than the overall record. So the purpose of the Getty Vocabularies, as I've just mentioned, it's to provide options for terms or promotes consistency when you assign terms in cataloging. But on the other end of the process, it's for retrieval and discovery by utilizing that rich contextual data in the vocabularies, and for other reasons too. Some of the key characteristics of the vocabularies, they're standards compliant for controlled vocabularies. They're authoritative. We cite authoritative sources and contributors, but we're not authoritarian. You can use any of the variant terms you wish. We have a reliable future as compared to some other resources produced by a known and respected institution. And how are the vocabularies unique in our global coverage of the defined domain of the visual arts, and for other reasons. Rich knowledge bases are important. They're not just value vocabularies or authorities, but they have that contextual data. And the Getty vocabularies are collaborative. We grow through contributions from the expert user community, and that also means it's relatively easy to contribute to the vocabularies, easier than with some other resources where you might not even be able to contribute at all. So the Getty vocabularies are based in standards for content and structure. Among the standards, subject heading lists, controlled lists, etc., the Getty vocabularies are thesauri compliant with NISO and ISO standards. And a thesaurus has these characteristics that are very important, these three relationships. Now we're looking at an AAT record. So we have various terms for writer, the concept. That's an equivalence relationship between those terms. But this concept is placed in a hierarchical relationship, writer as a type of culinary container. And then there's a third relationship, associative, and here it's indicating that writer is distinguished from stirrup cups and Sturzbeckers. The vocabularies are linked to each other as well as being linked within each vocabulary. So for example, with ULAN, the roles are controlled by the AAT. Our data is then published in a structured, standard way. So you can take advantage of these interlinks. We have a small department. What we do is we process contributions, we do quality and scope control, developing tools and publications, and we work closely with another branch of the Getty Digital, who creates systems for us, disseminates the formats, helps with implementations and other support. Current status and priorities for our future. So we know that the vocabularies are pretty much Western bias, and that just is based on the history of who contributed in the past. And we want to make them more multilingual, multicultural, diverse, inclusive, and accessible. So we're working on that. First, we have to measure where we are now. Those two pie charts at the top on the left are the languages in the AAT, and the biggest piece is from, it represents English. We also have Spanish, Chinese, and Dutch terms, but we want to spread those wedges out so it's more equally distributed. On the right at the top, those are the nationalities and cultures in ULAN, and the biggest wedge are European artists. And again, we want to spread these wedges out so it's more equal. At the bottom, you see usage. Now on the map in a typical month, the Getty vocabularies are used all over the world, but, and you look at the pie chart, half of those users are coming from the US, so we need to improve on that. Let me just tell you a few ways we're trying to address this, still looking at the AAT here. We have this concept of avoid use. So this will help facilitate unbiased terminology. So here's an example. Slaves formerly was a common way in English to refer to this concept, but now it is better to say enslaved people. So we have deprecated the term slaves. It's still there to provide retrieval, but enslaved people now is flagged at the top, and slaves is flagged as pejorative. So users know that. And this accords also what's going on in other standards, such as Library of Congress. They have also, this was in June, I think they've changed it now, but slaves still was linked as this heading, and enslaved persons was a used for term. But now they have decided in 2021 to make that change. Enslaved persons should be preferred. And this shows how Library of Congress is sometimes takes a long time to make these changes. However, we do realize that making precipitous changes in an evolving environment disrupts consistency and reliability for users. So at the Getty Vocabulary Program, we are more agile. We can make these changes faster, but we try to be careful when we do so. Here's another example, how the AAT can facilitate our goals with, it allows for the expression of ambiguity and uncertainty. And this is baked in the AAT. It's always been like that. So for example, in a scientific rock classification system, it goes by geological origin, igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic, and indeed the AAT reflects that. Granite is an igneous rock. But the AAT also allows you to express this ambiguity, uncertainty, or in this case, cultural differences. Here's a term, ponamu. It refers to greenstone found on South Island, New Zealand. And here the Maori do not classify stones by geological origin, but by appearance, according to color markings, etc. And this fits perfectly well in the same resource as the scientific classification in the AAT. Going over to TGN, we try to do the same thing. That second term listed there is has a word that is an offensive reference to a Native American female, that is now flagged as pejorative, and the other term, alder spring, floats to the top. We have polyhierarchies in the Getty Vocabularies, and this also helps us to represent different points of view. So here we have Blue Gap, which is a place in the Navajo Nation, a tribal nation in the United States, but there are overlapping jurisdictions. And due to the polyhierarchy, we can also indicate that Blue Gap is in the US state of Arizona. Same thing in Kona. We have multiple names with dates and languages associated with them. You could choose the one that meets your purpose. And in the iconography authority, here we have some deities in the Nahoa iconography part of the hierarchy, where we try to respectfully describe and classify iconographical topics, and working with contributors, hopefully involve experts and ideally members of the community referenced if possible and pertinent. Now moving over to ULAN. Here we acknowledge various cultural traditions. Here is Sori. It's a Go name for Hokusai. And it's an art name. It's flagged as art name with other flags here. But we can use the same facility already baked into ULAN to note things such as, for example, adult name, the name that may have been conferred at adulthood in a certain culture. Maybe changed name would be used for a transgender person whose name changed. And this brings up the issue of personal privacy. So we want to respect personal privacy, but this has to be balanced with the critical ability to do research. And here we're still with Hokusai. We have the gender male, and also we note that he's the adopted child of Nakajima Issei. But when you're dealing with a person who's lived recently or is still alive, this does become a tricky issue. When is it appropriate to include information about recent or living people? This is an open issue for us, but right now we feel if it is established in reliable published sources that the person so self-identifies, that we should include it. So if we eliminate knowledge, we will deny the ability to do research. If female artists are not noted, you cannot search for female artists, or if the ethnic group African Americans are not noted, you cannot search for that. So here's a record for a person who died in 1983. Their birth name was Anna Prinner, and they're transgender. They changed their name to Anton Prinner, and this is well documented that they so self-identified, so we include it. But other authorities might have a different view. Library of Congress, for example, has recently said do not include gender. They say the primary goal of authority data is for disambiguation, not contextual biographical information. But their mission is not the same as the Getty Vocabularies. We have rich resources intended to facilitate complex research and discovery. We're not simple value vocabularies. So looking to the future, we are committed to making the vocabularies ever more multilingual, multicultural, and inclusive. We're planning development and releases for, we think, maybe at least 4 audiences. We have the scholarly researchers who might need rich, full data. We have casually interested persons, and maybe those who just want to link to an ID. They might need a slimmer data set, and developers, of course. We want to maintain our rich data while remaining relevant and innovative as technology advances. And we want to facilitate contributions that are more targeted and less opportunistic. So we hope you contribute if we don't have a term that you need. And by contributing, the contributor benefits. They have your data incorporated in the greater whole for your own use and for sharing in the broader community. So to contribute, you would go to our website and there's instructions there. Right now, contributions are mostly coming in on spreadsheets. We're in the process of building a new system, but right now spreadsheets work best for us. Or you can always write to us at vocab@getty.edu if you have questions. The data is available as LOD, XML, relational tables, APIs right now under the Open Data Commons Attribution License, and there's a page online where you can find all of the files and information about them. We also have an Open Refine reconciliation service. Open Refine is a tool for data cleanup and transformation, and you can link to certain resources such as the Getty Vocabularies. So if you had a spreadsheet of artist names, for example, you could put those in Open Refine and use ULAN to get the ID for those ULAN records, or maybe you want to get the biography for those records as in ULAN, etc. We also have a Sparkle endpoint. Sparkle is a semantic query language for databases. We have 90 some queries here, sample queries, to help get you started and how to look at for things that you need on the data behind the scenes. And we think we might do a demonstration project at the GRI to use the Sparkle endpoint. So let's say you had a project, you wanted to find all the non-Italian artists, painters say, who are working in Italy in the 15th and 16th century. So you could use Sparkle to formulate a query to look for that in ULAN, then get the results of that ULAN search and use those results to query databases of other material. Maybe at the Getty, it would be the provenance index and the Getty portal. And finally, one of our main goals is to improve interconnectivity. So in the center, we have the Getty Vocabularies linked to each other that I showed you before, and we are linked to a number of outside resources. But over time, we want to have co-references and links out there further to better have connectivity. Thank you very much.